Your passport is in the officer's hand for the second time. He scans it, waits, scans it again, and doesn't look up. Instead, he lifts a phone. Through the glass behind the counter, two more officers begin moving, one toward your gate, one toward the exit. On the screen in front of him is a photograph, 3 years old, still good enough to matter. A line is forming behind you. Nobody in it knows why you've stopped moving. You do. You just don't know which country this is going to be, only that it's the one that finally noticed.
Level 1. The door you walk through once you take. You tell yourself it isn't running. It's leaving early. The arraignment is a date on a calendar you've quietly decided not to keep, and the version of you that sits in a courtroom explaining bank records to 12 strangers is a version you'd rather not become. You pack in under an hour. The things that matter fit in one bag, which tells you something about how little of your life you're actually taking with you. At the counter, the agent scans your ticket, glances at your passport, hands it back without a second look. Your name hasn't been flagged anywhere. Not here, not at any airport on Earth. Because a domestic warrant is a local instrument before it's anything else. It can send officers to your apartment. It cannot yet touch you on a runway 6,000 miles from the county that issued it. That gap, for now, is the only thing keeping you upright. You board. The cabin door seals. The plane lifts. And for the first time in weeks, your hands stop shaking.
Somewhere behind you, in an office you'll never see, a prosecutor closes your file for the night and marks it, "Subject failed to appear." It's a small note, typed once, filed automatically, indistinguishable in the system from 1,000 other small notes typed that same week. It doesn't feel like the beginning of anything. It is. Level 2. The warrant learns to travel. The first month is survival. Cash, quiet, the walk to the market, the name of the barista, the sound the shutters make at midnight when the wind comes off the water. The second month is different. You are good at one thing, and it turns out that thing travels well. Knowing how money should look on paper, so nobody looks at it twice. Your first client is a restaurant owner 3 years behind on paperwork he's too afraid to show anyone. You spend a weekend making his numbers tell a truer story than the one he was about to tell a local auditor, and by Monday he's already talking about you to a friend. Word moves fast in a small foreign city. Within a season, you have 3 clients, then 8, then a name people use in rooms you're not standing in. Not your real name, but one that already means something. Careful, discreet, worth paying for. You tell yourself this is different from what put you here. It funds better locks, a driver who doesn't ask questions. A life that finally feels like yours, instead of something you're renting by the week. In every way that matters to a case file, it is exactly the same thing you left home to stop doing. Because a federal warrant doesn't stay still just because you've stopped looking at it. A prosecutor's office formally asks that a fugitive be escalated to international status, and the request travels through one specific channel, your own country's Interpol National Central Bureau, a liaison office every member country keeps for exactly this purpose. A case agent's name goes onto the file that day. You won't learn that name for months. It won't stop mattering to you once you do. You feel none of it happen. You only notice, weeks later, that an old contact reaches out and asks, casually, almost warmly, where exactly you ended up. And you realize, with a small cold drop, that he isn't asking as a friend anymore. Your name has started traveling on its own, into rooms that have nothing to do with the ones you built it in. Level 3. Your file gets a photograph. To ask other countries to look for you, the National Central Bureau has to hand them something to look for. Not a name, a person. Your passport number, date and place of birth, height, build, scars, any distinguishing marks. Photographs pulled from old visa records and license photos, and newer ones too, because a man who is starting to matter in certain rooms is a man who occasionally gets photographed in them. Known aliases, if any exist. Known associates, the people you call, the people who'd know where to find you if anyone asked them the right way, in the right tone, at the right hour. Increasingly, that list includes clients. It has always included people you love. Dana is the one who helped you pack the night you left, who still calls most Sundays, who believes, because you told her, that you're somewhere you are not. You lied to her for the first time, not out of cruelty, but arithmetic. What she doesn't actually know, she can't hand over by accident to someone who phrases the question well. You sound tired, she says. I'm fine, you say, and you both let it go, because neither of you knows yet what letting it go will eventually cost. You already know the shape of that particular mistake. A friend of a friend, 2 years back,
wasn't found through anything clever. Just a predictable call from a predictable number at a predictable hour to a person investigators had already learned to watch. It wasn't a trap. It was patience, applied to an ordinary habit nobody thought to break.
Level 4. The notice goes out. The request clears. Your National Bureau formally asks Interpol's General Secretariat to circulate what's officially called a Red Notice, a request to member countries to locate you and, if found, provisionally detain you pending extradition. It's built on the valid arrest warrant already sitting in your file back home. It is not, whatever the movies have taught you, an international arrest warrant with its own police force standing behind it. Interpol doesn't arrest anyone. It has no agents, no jurisdiction of its own, no jail cells anywhere in the world. What it has is a shared database, accessible in real time to law enforcement and border authorities across the large majority of its nearly 200 member countries, carrying your photograph, your description, and the plain fact that at least one government wants very much to know where you are. Whether a given country treats that notice as grounds to detain you on the spot depends on that country's own laws. Some require their own court order first. Others act on the notice alone. From this point forward, your file exists almost everywhere at once. You exist in exactly one place. 2 weeks later, a courier you worked with early on is stopped changing planes in a country neither of you has ever visited together. He isn't held long. A few hours, some questions, a form he has to sign before they let him board his connecting flight. But he calls you afterward from a number you don't recognize, and he doesn't sound like the person you remember hiring. They knew your name before they knew mine, he says. You don't have an answer for that. Somewhere, a case agent who has never met you reads the report and adds one more line to a file that is, slowly, starting to look less like paperwork and more like a person. Level 5. Every border becomes a coin flip. You do what feels rational. You move again. A country with no extradition treaty with the United States sounds like real safety. And for a while, it behaves like real safety. Right up until you need to leave it. And every route out runs through somewhere that does have one. Here's what movement actually costs you now. Most international airports check incoming passports against Interpol's shared databases as a matter of routine procedure. Not because anyone suspects you specifically, but because the system checks everyone, every time. Land borders feel slower, safer, so you start choosing them. And every delay there feels like standing still in a spotlight. Every stamp in your passport is a data point. Every boarding pass is a record. Your name, your seat, your point of departure, time-stamped and stored. This is the turn the whole story pivots on. The mobility that once felt like your advantage is now the thing generating a trail wide enough for someone else, somewhere else, to eventually follow. Clients still expect you to show up. The thing you built doesn't pause just because the risk underneath it has changed shape. You don't feel yourself losing ground. You only notice, one connecting flight at a time, how many airports you've quietly started avoiding altogether, and how the map in your head has gotten smaller every month instead of bigger. Level 6. The net tightens. Money was supposed to be the safe part. It isn't. An account you thought was quiet gets frozen after a bank review. No useful explanation attached. 2 clients stop calling almost immediately. The third does something worse. He sits down with investigators and gives them the records from your work together. Not because he hates you, because keeping you is now more dangerous than losing you. And when he is forced to choose between your freedom and his own future, he chooses himself. You learn about it indirectly. His number goes dead. His name disappears from the rooms where people used to mention yours beside it. Then another client sends a message. Don't contact me again. Across an ocean, the case agent reads the client's statement and underlines your alias once. Until now, the file has been passports, transfers, dates, reports. For the first time, someone who actually knows you has described the person behind them. The life you built starts dissolving faster than it grew. Work dries up, doors close. Every ordinary routine begins to feel exposed. You are still free, technically, but freedom is becoming something you can measure by how few people are still willing to answer when you call. Level 7. Peak freedom, minimum movement. You have, by any honest measure, made it. There's money, a rented villa, sea air, a language you're finally getting fluent in. From a distance, it resembles exactly what you ran to find. Then, Dana gets a visit. 2 investigators. Polite, patient. They ask questions she barely knows how to answer because you made sure months ago that she wouldn't have answers.
She calls that night and asks why strangers in windbreakers know where she works and when she last heard your voice. For the first time, the fear in her isn't about what might happen to you. It's about what your life has already brought to her door. You don't call her again. It is the safest choice you can make for her, and it feels exactly like punishment. Here's the cage folded inside everything you built.
You can't safely use your real name. Major airports feel less like transportation than checkpoints. You can't go home for a funeral. The few clients who remain expect things you can no longer safely deliver, and the country you're standing in hasn't protected you. It simply hasn't acted yet. You wake up some nights already listening for a knock that hasn't come. A courier got questioned. A client chose himself. Dana never meant to be part of any of this. 3 people, 3 different motives, all tightening the same world around you. You wanted a world large enough to disappear into. Somehow, every month, it gets smaller.
Level 8, the ordinary checkpoint. It isn't a raid. It isn't a car chase down a runway. It's a transit connection you've made a dozen times before without incident, at a counter no more dangerous looking than 100 others you've passed through since this began. The officer scans your passport. He scans it again. He picks up the phone. This is where the story returns to the room it started in, because it never really left it. The second scan, the pause. The screen turned a color you've never seen a screen turn before. Nobody raises their voice. Nobody needs to. Local police confirm your identity the way identity gets confirmed now. Not through instinct or a lucky guess, but through your passport's biometric data matched against the notice on file, backed up, if needed, by fingerprints taken in a small room down a corridor you didn't know existed until an hour ago, under a fluorescent light that makes everyone look equally guilty. From here, Interpol's part in your story is already finished. What happens next belongs to 2 governments, the one that wants you back and the one that just found you. They can hold you provisionally for several weeks while the country that indicted you files a formal extradition request through official diplomatic channels. A local court, not Interpol, not anyone from home, decides whether that paperwork holds up. Then whatever appeals the law allows. Then a plane, whose destination you don't get to choose. The report that closes the provisional file is signed by a case agent. It is the same name that opened it, 9 months and 1 continent ago. You finally learn it the way you learn most things now, in the paperwork, after it no longer matters. The country that stops you turns out to be the one you trusted precisely because it had let you stay so long. That isn't a coincidence. It's how the system is built, patient, cumulative, entirely indifferent to how comfortable you got in the meantime, or how good the coffee was, or how well you'd learned to order it in the local language. You're held first, questioned second, and eventually walked through a hearing where a judge who has never heard your name until this week decides whether the paperwork from a country you haven't seen in years is enough to send you back into it. In most cases, eventually, it is. Dana finds out from a headline before you find a way to tell her yourself. She reads it twice, standing in a kitchen you've never seen, before she believes it's really your face in the photo. The clients scatter within the week, already asking each other, quietly, for a new name to trust. The villa gets someone else's name on the lease within the year. Your case number outlives your version of the story. It gets reopened, refiled, and reassigned the same week another name, someone else's, somewhere else's, starts appearing in the very same database yours is finally leaving. You didn't disappear. You were simply logged, everywhere, patiently, for longer than you were ever actually hidden. Every border you crossed to feel free had already quietly agreed, long before you arrived, to remember that you'd been there. Until one ordinary morning, in one ordinary line, at one ordinary counter, the world you thought you'd escaped remembered exactly where to find you.